Hi guys, welcome back to Programming with Kotlin and Android. My name is Tensor. This is the final tutorial in building out our CryptoTracker. In this tutorial we're going to build out the actual home activity and all of the things that come with it. Now I did something that I normally don't do in this tutorial, and that was actually go ahead and implement the main activity before creating the video. And here's the application. So you can see here it opens up and we've got all the different cryptocurrencies that we bring in. We bring in 15 of them. We can click on one of them and it will bring up this window from the bottom. It will show us more information than the little bar. We've got a setting that we can set. This will allow us to set an auto refresh, and then this will refresh every 15 seconds. We can also swipe down, which will allow us to refresh the application, and we can click this X button if we want to exit. And so the reason why I built this out was so that you could get an understanding of what exactly it is we're coding here, because this particular activity is a bit more complicated than the others. Alright, so now let's take a look at the code itself. So like with our splash screen, we needed to create a home view interface. And our home view interface implements 6 different functions. We have update progress visibility, and this takes in visible, which is a boolean. And this particular function is the function that basically implements that whole swipe down to refresh the box functionality. Then we have a function called show internet error. This is a function that we use to send back an error if we lose connectivity to the internet. Then we have our update data function. This function takes in the response, which is the response from the API, and it's what basically gives us all of our data. Then we have a show error function. This takes in the throwable, and if we get an error from getting all of our stuff from the API, then it will throw out an error. Then we want a function to disable pull to refresh progress, and finally we have refresh list. Now let's look at our home presenter. Our home presenter takes in our home view, which is the interface we just looked at. It takes in the crypto network service and then the network utils. We create a disposable property, which is a composite disposable. And then we have a function called get all currencies. We have a when block, and we check the network utils to see if it's connected. Then we take our home view and we set our update progress visibility to true. And then we take our disposables and we add the service.getAllCurrency. And on success, we pass back the response, and we set our home view disable pull to refresh progress. And then we also set our home view update progress visibility to false. And then we say if response is not empty, aka if we got in a response from the API, then we want to create a sorted list, take in everything from the API, and sort it by rank. So we'll have Bitcoin at the top, Ethereum as second, and Ripple as third, etc. And we're doing this by calling response sorted with, and then we want to compare each one by its rank, and we convert the rank into an integer. And then we just want to update the data by passing the sorted list into our home view. On error, we are going to disable our pull to refresh progress, and then we want to call update progress visibility, set that to false, and then we want to show the actual error by passing it in. Now, if we're not connected to the internet, we disable the pull to refresh progress, and then we show the internet error. We also want to create a onDestroy method, and this will be for when the user exits the app. It will call disposables safe dispose, which will safely remove the disposables from the memory. If we go into our main activity, it not only extends our base activity and our home view, but it also extends this home adapter holder lister. And it does this because we're using a RecyclerView. RecyclerView allows us to disconnect the data from the actual view layer itself. And it does this by way of a view holder. Each of the objects inside of our RecyclerView are called view holders. Each view holder is in charge of displaying a single item, and it has its own view. So the RecyclerView itself is more like a list of organized views that can all update independent of one another. The home adapter is taking in items, which is a mutable list with our currency model inside of it, and it's extending RecyclerView adapter with home adapter HomeViewHolder inside of it. And HomeViewHolder is a class that's inside of this class. So we create a property called listener, we set this equal to null, and then we create a companion object, and this just holds a string called minus, which is a constant. The only reason why we're doing this is because we reuse the minus sign quite a lot. So then we need to override our onCreateViewHolder function. This takes in the view group, which is the parent, and then the view type, which is an integer, and it outputs the view holder itself. We get our root view by calling layout inflator from parent. We pass in the parent context and then we inflate our coin item. If you remember, our coin item is this thing. So it's the actual elements inside of our recycler view. And then we instantiate our HomeViewHolder and we pass in the root view. We need to override on BindViewHolder. We pass in holder, which is the HomeViewHolder, and the position, which is an integer. And this is basically just allowing us to find the position of each of the views. So we call holder, and then we bind the items to the position, and then we add a listener. And this bind function is created inside of our HomeViewHolder. Then we want to override getItemCount, and we just set this equal to items.size. And then we want to create a function called updateListData. This takes in our list of currency model, and then we take our items and we add all the new items, and then we notify that the data set changed. So our HomeViewHolder class extends the RecyclerView viewholder class, and it also takes in the item view type. Inside of it we have our bind function, which takes in our item, which is our currency model item, and then the listener, which is a holder listener. We use a with block on the item view. We want to set the TV code to item symbol inside of parentheses. So this will be the symbol of the cryptocurrency. Then we want to change the item name. So rather than Bitcoin, it will change to say Ethereum or Ripple or whatever. And then we want to change the item price using string interpolation so that we can add a $sign. Then we want to set up the day %change, and we set that equal to it with the % in it, and then we want to check to see if it's positive or negative. Then we're going to add an arrow down, otherwise we want to add an arrow up, and then we set the image drawable and we pass in our arrow stats, which is the image that we just got. We do the same for week %change and for hour %change, and then last updated, which is this right here, the date and the time that it was updated on. We want to update this by calling our extension function save to long, and then we want to set the text equal to Unix timestamp Unix to date. And then finally we want to set an on-click listener on all of our elements. Will be on-click holder, so when we tap the holder, and we'll pass in the adapter position. And we also need to create this interface called holder listener, and this is what implements this on-click holder function. Now we also have this DetailDialog fragment inside of our HomeActivity module, and this is for dealing with the state of this part of our application. So when I click on Bitcoin, this comes up from the bottom, and it has a lot more information than the normal card. So our DetailDialog fragment extends bottom sheet dialog fragment. Inside of it we have a companion object. We have a function called newInstance, and this takes in the currency model and it outputs a DetailDialog fragment. This allows us to kind of decouple the state from the actual view. So we create an args variable, we set this equal to our bundle, and then we apply put parsable with our currency model, and then we return our DetailDialog fragment, and we apply our arguments to it. Then we want to create a currency model constant, and we'll create a bottom sheet height constant, which will be 320, and this is just the height of the actual view itself. And then of course we want to get that minus again. We want to override on CreateView. This will be for creating the actual view. This takes in the inflator, which is the layout inflator, and the container, as well as the bundle, which is the saved instance, and it outputs a view. We return our inflator, and then we inflate the DetailDialog, which is this window here. And we pass in the container, and then we don't want it to be attached to the root. Then we need to override on view created. We pass in our view and our saved instance, which is our bundle. We call the super version of this, and then we just want to set up the arguments by calling arguments let. We set our model equal to it get parsable, and we pass in our currency model, and then we update the display detail with the model. And this update display detail function is right here. So this is how we bind our data to our model. The first part is going to be almost exactly the same as our home adapter. So if you look at the application here, I click say Ethereum. You can see we have this timestamp. We've got the arrows and the percentages, and we've got the name, which is Ethereum, which is ETH, as well as the price. Then below it, we have this TV daily volume USD value, which is this. So we take that and we want it to be formatted with a $sign, and then we want to trim the trailing zeros if there are any. and then we set it equal to the text. We do the same for our market cap, and then for our available supply, we say formatted equals it.trim trailing zeros, so we just remove all the trailing zeros, and then we set it equal to its text value. We do the same for total supply, max supply. For price IDR, daily volume IDR, and market cap IDR, we're formatting the string to have RP period in front of it. So after binding all of our data to our view, then we want to override our onStart method. We get our dialog box, and then we call let on it. We're going to set our bottom sheet equal to that dialog, and then we want to find our view by ID, and we point this towards r.id design bottom sheet. And then our bottom sheet we call layoutparams.height, call context.convertDP to pixels, and we pass in our bottom sheet height. And this gives us the height of the bottom sheet. Then we set a value called curView to view, and then we call let on it, and then we want to call post on it. We want to get the parent, then we want to get the params as a coordinator layout params, and we want to get the bottom sheet behavior as a behavior, bottom sheet behavior with a view in it. And then we want to make it so that the view literally scrolls up and scrolls down. So this is actually the logic that allows it to move up and down the way it does. So we say bottom sheet behavior, let, and the way it behaves. So we get the peak height, and then we set it equal to its measured height. We want to set the background to the accent color, which is just that gray color. Alright, so now let's look at our home activity. We have two injected properties. One is our network utils and the other one is our service. Then we have a companion object which has a constant which is 15 long. We're using this for the auto refresh rate, which will be 15 seconds. Then we want to instantiate our home presenter by lazy evaluation. We pass in the service and the network utils. We want to create a home adapter property as well. We set this equal to null. And then we have our auto update service. This is a boolean that we get from our delegated preferences. We pass in the context, and then we pass in false for the default value. Then we want to get our handler, which allows us to handle with the various threads on our Android application. We of course need to inject this application into our main activity. So we have our init injection. We call application as main activity. Then we pass in CryptoDeps, and then we inject this, which is the home activity, into the main activity. Then we have our OnReadyView function. We call setupToolbar, which is a function down below. Then we take our home adapter. We set this equal to home adapter with a empty mutable list of. And then we apply our listener to our context at home activity. With our RecyclerView, which is called RVCrypto, we call our layout manager, and we set this equal to linear layout manager because we have a bunch of linear layouts inside of it. And then we set the adapter equal to our home adapter. We want to check to see if auto update status is true. So if this box has been checked and it's true, we want to create a new object that extends runnable, and we override the run method. We call home presenter get all currencies, and then we get our handler, and then we want to delay this by 15 seconds. So this is basically just delaying its updated state by 15 seconds. And then of course we want to post it to our handler. So we call handler.post, and then we pass in the time task object. Otherwise, all we want to do is call homepresenter.getAllCurrencies. We also want to set up our scroll listener, and again, this is another function that's below us. So we get our set support ActionBar, which is our toolbar, as a toolbar. And we're talking about this toolbar up here. So the part that says CoinStatus and has the X box here. So then we get our ActionBar and we call let on it. We want to call set display home as up enabled as true. Then we want to set display show home enabled as true. And then we want to call set home as up indicator. Then we want to put our R drawable IC cross on it. We want to clear our title. And then we want to replace that title with our string, which just says CoinStatus. If you just look at the header here, it just says CoinStatus and it has this X in it. So what we're doing with this logic is we're adding in the picture and we're changing the title to CoinStatus. Then we're setting up our scroll listener, and this is for our swipe refresh layout. We want this to be enabled, so we set this equal to true. Then we set on refresh listener, and then we call refresh list. Then we set typed value equal to typed value. This.homeactivity.theme.resolve attribute, and we call android.support.v7.appcompat.r.attr.actionbar size, value type, and true for the resolved refs. Then we set progress view as offset. We set this to false, and then the start is 0. And then we call this at HomeActivity, resources, get dimension, pixel size, and we pass in the type value.resource ID. And then we set it equal to is refreshing, and we set this equal to true. When a user pulls down on this, this is the logic for that. So this function that we're calling inside of it, it just gets RvCryptoAdapter as home adapter, and then we update the list data with an empty list of, and then we call homePresenter get all currencies, so it actually fills up that list. We have another function called disable pull to refresh progress, and this just makes it so we can't pull down that circle and refresh our list. Now we have a function called update progress visibility. This takes in a boolean, which is the visibility. We check our swipe crypto is refreshing. We set this equal to visible, and then we get our window and we call let on it. And when it's visible, we want to block the touch screen. So we want to block a user from being able to touch the touch screen. Else, if it's not visible, then we want to make it so that a person can touch the touch screen. Then we have our show internet error function. This gets our root home. It creates a snack bar with no internet connection in it. And then we set the time length to indefinite. We create an action on it where it has a check inside of it, and this is just a button. And if we click this button, then it will dismiss this snack bar, and then it will reload all the currencies. If I put my virtual machine in airplane mode, we have this snack bar at the bottom that says no internet connection. If I remove airplane mode and I click check, now it will actually refresh and bring everything back up. Then we just have a basic update data function. This gets our RvCryptoAdapter as home adapter, and then it calls update list data with the response in it. Then we also have a show error function. If our API throws back an error, then we'll have a snack bar that appears at the bottom that will say something went wrong. Then we need to override the function onClickHolder. This is basically what allows us to click on one of our holders and bring up the box from the bottom. So we get our home adapter and we get the item's position. And then we call DetailDialog fragment, new instance with a model in it. And then we show the support fragment manager, and then we call it.tag. We need to handle our menu, so we need to override the onCreateOptions menu and the onOptions item selected. So this one allows us to inflate our menu, which is our home menu, and then we just return true. The actual cog itself is the home menu. On options item selected. And this will call our OpenSettings function, which is right here, which is what opens that dialog box that allows us to have the application auto refresh or not. Now to actually generate that dialog box, we call OpenSettings, and then we call a GenerateDialog function, which we have below. So basically we're binding this is auto on to whether or not the slider has been checked. And if auto is on, then we want to change it to say on. Otherwise, we want to change it to say off. Then we need to create a button listener for save. So we call with on it. And then we call our button save. We set an on click listener. When you click the save button, it will dismiss the dialog. And then it will create a new intent, which is called add flags, and then we pass in intent flag activity, no animation, because we want no animation with this. And then we get our context, we finish the activity, and then we restart the activity with our refresh intent inside of it. And then we want to change our auto update status to is auto on. Then we want to check to see if switch auto is checked, and then we set that equal to auto update status, and then we show. Now if you remember, we had this generate dialog function up here, and all this does is actually generate the dialog. So we get transparent background, and then we apply, and then we set content view, we inflate inside of our home activity, our layout dialog settings, and then we pass in null for the root because there is none. We want to set it to be cancelable so that they can cancel out of it. And then we want to set cancel on touch on the outside. So if I open this dialog box and I click outside of it, it will automatically quit out of the dialog box. We'll do the same for our exit dialog. So function on exit dialog. So we create our dialog, we create it with a transparent background, and then we inflate the dialog inside of the home activity. And again, it has null root, so null. We want it to be cancelable, and we want it to set cancel on touch outside. We also want to set the on click listeners for each of the buttons. So for button no, we set the on click listener to this.dismiss, which will dismiss the dialog. And then for yes, we want to call this at HomeActivity.finish, which will close out of the home activity. and then of course we call show. Finally, for the home activity itself, we want to set up the actual layout. We're going to point this towards our activity main layout. Then we want to override our on back pressed so that if the user hits back, it will open up our exit dialog. And then finally, we want to override onDestroy. So we call homePresenter.onDestroy. Then we call handler.remove callbacks and messages, and we set it equal to null, and then we call super onDestroy. And that's it. So now we can rerun the application. We get our splash screen, and then we get all of our coins. And this brings in 15 different coins. We could bring in more, but this is all we really want. And we get all the information. So if we want to see more about Bitcoin, we can click on it. And then we can open up our dialog box. Say we want to have it be auto refresh, we can. So we click the box and then we hit save. You'll see that it actually reloads the entire home activity. And you can see here now everything is sort of auto refreshing every 15 seconds. We can pull down to refresh if we want to. And of course we can exit the application just by hitting the X and then by hitting yes when it actually refreshes. And we can hit back, which will open up this dialog, and we can hit yes, which will exit the application. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed this tutorial series. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the box below. And if you disliked it, then by all means downvote it as much as you like. Have a good night.